This video is going to be part of the EIC Accelerator training program that I created. I thought, should I publish some stuff on YouTube because clearly it can help people out? And then I thought, actually the module just for the EIC Accelerator video might be quite useful because everybody who looks for the EIC Accelerator on YouTube might look for instructions on how to do their video. So why not? I'm going to put this module on YouTube because maybe it's going to help some applicants. For the EIC Accelerator video in step 1, you have a lot of different options and you don't have to really make a great super edited video. So I've seen companies get very good scores in the first step just submitting some type of advertisement or literally just have some Zoom recording. So it does not really matter. So what I first recommend is to do the video after the proposal is written. After the main proposal for step 1 has been written, then you do the video. The reason is if you want to edit something in the main proposal, it's very quick. If you want to edit something in the video, you probably have to re-record something. So first you want to make sure that the main proposal is written and then you can record the video because then you have the narrative set, everything is set. So I believe that there's very little you can do wrong in this video and there's very little you actually need to do it. Let me just explain to you how I always do it with my clients and how I think it makes the most sense. So my process is very simple. I want to see the 3 most senior members of the team. So I usually just pick 3 people and I'm already doing this with the interview in mind. So I usually try to select 3 senior people that are probably going to be in the interview in step 3 if you make it to the interview. But it's fine if they're going to change. But usually I try to have 3 team members. I pick the CEO, CTO, and maybe if you have a CSO or maybe a VP of partnerships or whatever. So I pick 3 people and then I write the script for them. So usually how I write the script is I just stage them. So for example, this is going to follow a normal storytelling. So the entire 3 minutes, and it's limited to exactly 3 minutes, so it can't be any longer. So the entire script is going to be staged according to the abstract. So for example, I start with the problem. So let's say climate change, the damages of climate change. And then I trickle it down. Okay, here's a problem. Energy storage is becoming very relevant, but there's an issue because energy storage depends on critical raw materials that are not found, let's say in Europe. So I very briefly summarize just in a few short sentences. So here you don't write these long elaborate sentences. If it is a script that people actually have to speak, then you're just going to have very short bullets. Sentences are very short. You just have one sentence. Climate change is expected to cause 50 billion in economic damages over the next 10 years. Could be a very short sentence. So you dedicate the first parts just to the problem and the setup. What is the setup in the market, in the world for your innovation? What is the context? So it can be just taken from the narrative you already wrote, problem solution. So the first part I dedicate to the problem and then I usually switch over. Let's say the first part is by the CEO. Then I usually switch over to someone like the CTO who talks about the solution. A solution to this is, let's say you have developed a new type of battery that does not use critical raw materials. Maybe it's a sodium battery or some type of solid state battery that does not need lithium, it doesn't need cobalt, it doesn't need nickel. Or maybe you talk about heart disease and maybe you have developed a new medication that has a completely new kind of platform technology. Or maybe the problem was related to automation. Maybe there's a problem with Industry 4.0 automation of factories and you have developed a new security system that helps companies avoid accidents or that helps companies just be more efficient and save a lot of money. This is where you explain that. So you dedicate quite a bit just talking about the solution. So very simple, problem in the first part, solution in the second part, and the last part is you bragging. In the last part, you talk about your customer interest, your customer test, your validation, and why you apply for the EIC funding. So usually what I then add is talk about the partners, talk about the customers, mention the names, make it sound great. And then I usually end with something like, we want the EIC to join us in developing this new treatment for heart disease. Or we are now requesting financing through the EIC to bring us to the next level and to innovate the global battery industry. Whatever it is, there should always be a bit of an invitation at the end. But you're extremely free in this entire thing. You just have to think about, they just want to see something. And sometimes it doesn't even have to be a face. As I said, some people just submit an advertisement where you don't even see a single employee. But if you don't have any footage, you really start from that. You just write a very simple script. You just make sure you have 3 senior people. If you don't have 3, then you take 2. It does not matter. It can also be 1 person, but it's usually better for that than problem, solution, and then some bragging, talking customers, talking partners. And if you don't have anything to brag about, you can always talk about the future impact. You can always talk about the things that are going to achieve, going to accomplish, what is going to be your impact on the market. And then now it depends on how savvy you are with editing software. So of course there are free solutions. I usually use Adobe Premiere Pro, but if you just Google, there's a lot of free software that you can use. And also you can just use Zoom. You can say, okay, we're just going to read the script. We do it one shot in Zoom. It's going to be 3 minutes. We're going to download it and submit it. You don't need to do any any editing at all. But how I do it is I usually get my clients to film the script. So I'm going to write them a script. I'm going to say, change things if you want to change them. Then I'm going to tell them, if you have a camera, if you have a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, and if you have an external microphone, then that's great. But if you don't, just use your phone. And most of my clients, if not all of them, usually just use their phone. So they use the back camera of their phone. Someone holds the camera and then they just stand in front of the camera. They just read the script and they usually try to be in an interesting environment. It can be an office if it's a software company. If it's a hardware company, it's always nice to be in the laboratory or maybe in the factory, whatever you have. So it's always good to have a background that really looks like, okay, there's some work happening here. And if you have a prototype, let's say you have something that is literally a prototype of your product that can be physically touched. So for example, you have a new type of drone or something. Then of course you can hold the drone in your hand. If there's a new type of medication, it's of course a little more difficult, but maybe you're going to wear a lab coat. Everything is going to look very technical. So again, this is not super important. This is just how I like to do it. But usually it's just a script. Then it's the person who is reading the script who's just going to have a smartphone as a camera. And then if you want to get into it, you can add a little bit of background music. So you can have the background music very quiet. You can have like minus 30 decibels, just some free corporate background music, which you can find anywhere on YouTube or SoundCloud. And then one of the things that I always like to do is add footage. So for example, you have the first part, the CEO is talking about the problem, and then I just add some stock footage. So you always have a transition. So the CEO says something and then they keep talking, but then you switch to something like stock footage that shows you, okay, here are these wind turbines, or here's this renewable energy, or these solar panels. And then you show the CEO again talking a little bit more about the problem, and then you're going to cut, and then there's going to be the recycling or the trash or the waste or whatever the problem is you want to solve. And then you see the CEO again, and the CEO keeps talking, and then you cut, and now you go to the solution, and maybe the CTO is talking right now, but instead of seeing the CTO, there's going to be an image of what your solution actually is, or maybe a video, or maybe an animation, something that illustrates that. Then it cuts back, and now you see the CTO, and so on. So you can always cut back and forth. It makes it a little bit more interesting, and it's always nice because sometimes you have a video that has 3 people talking, but you know the saying, an image can be worth more than 1,000 words, and the same goes for a video. So talking about the need for this new drone is not the same thing as just showing the drone while you speak, so this is always more powerful. So you can be creative here, but you don't have to be. Again, this video is not going to really impact the evaluation. The main proposal is going to be the most impactful part. Then comes the pitch deck, and the last part is the video. But one thing you should consider is that the jury members in the last step, in the step 3, they're going to have access to anything if they want to access. Same goes for step 2. So the video, even though I say it's not that important, there's a very, very high probability that the step 2 and the step 3 evaluators are going to watch the video. It's probably going to be watched by everybody. And one last recommendation, once you have written the script, just read it out and then add some times here, just so you have a very rough indication of where you are. So for example, you have written out the script, read it out, stop the time, make sure you're under 3 minutes. So 3 minutes should be the maximum. And then in the editing part, if you realize you're a little higher, usually what you can do is you can cut out the pauses. So it takes a bit of time, but in the 3-minute timeline, you just go through and you cut out all the pauses, and you can actually save a lot of time. So even if you have a script and you've read it and it's 3 minutes and 30 seconds, you can probably save these 30 seconds just by cutting out the pauses of all the speakers. But again, totally up to you.